You smile, I want you smile. I love you smile, I love you smile. Why don't you smile? We've been thinking about some positive changes. We need some positive changes. Thinking about some positive.
And now today's host, Imam Ezekiel Pasha.
Assalamu alaikum, dear video audio listening audience. We're here with a live stream program, The Thinker. And as always, we're here with the resident Imam, Imam Ezekiel Pasha, who is the resident Imam of the historic Masjid Imam Shabazz. My name is Philip, and I'm here also with Sister Marsha. We haven't heard from a resident Imam in a long while, so it's always glad to hear from him again, as he gives us the benefit of his thinking. And we get to engage him in questions which includes society as large, what's happening in the community, as well as recent events. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Imam.
Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Philip and Sister Marsha. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. Always we praise God, we witness to God as one, having no associates, He is God alone. And we witness to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, the prayers and the peace be upon him. He is Allah's servant and messenger and a mercy to all of humanity and all that would follow of that traditional salute. And alhamdulillah, we are grateful again to be with you on the Thinker presentation, coming live on the different social networks. And we pray to God that our conversation today and the questions that may be asked of me, that I will give my good intentions to answer them to the best of my ability, and hoping that my answers, and praying that my answers, you will receive them in the proper way, and knowing that I don't intend to say anything to be offensive to anyone or just simply just to criticize, but my prayer is that our efforts to answer them will bring good and nothing but good. That is our niyyah, that is our intent. So, alhamdulillah, I turn it back over to you, Brother Philip.
Assalamu, Brother Imam. It's been a while since we last heard from you, and since then we've had, a lot has happened, you know, to say the least. So it's good to see you back. And you know, we get to engage you to help us make how we should view some of these recent events that is happening. So I guess the first thing that I would like to start with is the gun violence. It's become prevalent, where we had a shooting recently in where was it again?
Kentucky.
Kentucky, and there's with his children that got killed.
In California.
No, that was in Texas.
I mean Texas.
California.
Right.
Yeah, Texas, Buffalo.
Right.
Then something
Kentucky.
Kentucky, and many others before that. And your question is?
How we should, because I don't think it's an isolated event, you know. I think it's probably tied to people being frustrated and feeling pressured and just downright unsettled, you know. And and they try to make it into like it's all a gun issue. It's just they try to target it. It's okay, it's guns that's killing people. And it's both. I've heard Democrats say it's a gun issue, while I've heard some Republicans say no, it's not only a gun issue. It's a human aspect to it. Like, but they like to use rhetoric. Oh, the only person with a gun turns up a bad person is a good person with a gun. But I'm yet to hear a comprehensive answer saying, no, you can't, it's not just guns alone, it's not just, yes, guns are part of it, but I'm yet to hear a comprehensive answer. Could you just tell us your take on it?
Alhamdulillah, I don't know whether I give a comprehensive one, but I can give you the reality as I see it, and the issue of crime itself, criminality, and the issue of a society and a time we're living in globally, not just in America, of the breakdown of the human family in terms of its psychic and its mental capacity that is being bombarded, and the culprit lies within culture, in the culture itself. In America, the history of our country is a culture of guns as a right to have and to bear arms and etc. And it's not just based around those who are still, say, go hunting for their food and those things, or even we have hunting as a sport, which would not be acceptable in our tradition, our faith, al-Islam. If I'm going to hunt and kill an animal, then it should be for food consumption. And even that, we have a way in which we must respect the killing of the animal, the sacred life that God has made all living creatures, including the plant life and etc. So we have a sacred regard to how we are to be nourished, and whatever we do in seeking food and the taking of the life of a living thing, be it fish, be it cows or lamb or chickens or anything of that nature, or any other animal, we must invoke the name of God before doing so, and asking for God's mercy and blessing. And we must do it in the most humane way that we can, with respect to the taking of life. So in the process we call the zibha, or the halawing of a particular animal for food, nourishment, we make the blade of the knife as sharp as it possibly can be, so that when we slaughter the animal is not even aware that it's been cut. And in our human experiences, you know, as a nurse practitioner, and even Sister Marsha, as a head of an office and what have you, you can get paper cuts and don't know you got them until maybe something touches it, or something hits it, a germ or something, then you realize, wow, what happened? So the idea of slaughtering an animal with humane circumstances is part of our religion. So as I see this unfolding historically, in America we have a culture of promoting gun violence. All your popular, I should say, movies and things like that, and go all the way back, is made popular by gun violence. What are the old gangster movies? It was all about, you know, Machine Gun Kelly and Al Capone, and you know, all and on and on and on. Even latest ones of the Godfathers, and then the cowboys. They always shooting and killing the Indians, and the Indians got a bow and arrow, and they got an automatic machine gun. You know, so there's a culture psychologically that was promoted, and has brought harm. Even today in the video game industry, the popular games are those with violence to them. So be it Democrat, Republican, Independents, or anyone else, or parents, or schools, whatever it is, we need to look at the culture that we are promoting, that gives credence, that gives a sense of it's okay to behave in this way. And we can go back to our enslavement. And it's a major part of this attitude also, because the enslavement of the African American human being was such a horrible circumstance, to the point where written even in part of the documentation of putting America together, we were stripped of our humanity and saying we were only worth 1/5 of a human being. So this is a long process that has come to a head as far as I can see. In terms of when you stripped us as being human, that allowed anything to be done to us. And as we said, things were done to us that folks would not do to their dog, to their cat, to their pet snake. You know, all of these things had more sensitivity of how you treated them than how you treated the human being called African in America enslaved. So it's a long, in other words, the thing, it's 400 years of culture of violence that's promoted as okay. Police stories, all of these things, they're still going on. Technology has allowed them to even make it more real as a reality. Gangsterism, I mean, all of these things in terms of mainly focusing on life not being as precious as it should be. Human life, animal life, and etc. And like I say, even today, we have more commercials about saving the dogs, saving the cats, saving this and saving that than we do about saving human beings, the highest of the creation. So this is not in a vacuum that racism, a person using race consciousness to go and kill other people, well, that was acceptable. That was promoted as being okay. You killed a person of African descent, no problem. You know, you hang them, you did this to them. I mean, it's a history. So this is not, this to be corrected, you got to go back and correct history. And we seem to be in a time that there's resistance to correct history and tell the facts of the history. And that's the only way you can correct it, is to say, we put this in our Constitution that the African enslaved here was only worth to be 1/5 of a person. In order to reverse this, you must first accept that you made a very wrong and incorrect evaluation to put that in the constitutions or within our American documentation. Now, should you take it out of there? My answer is no, don't take it out, but correct it and put right next to it, we said this and we treated them like this. And the history of what we did to them because we put this in here like this was absolutely wrong before God. And we called ourselves a religious or God-conscious nation while we demeaned and maimed and slaughtered the Native Americans and many others under the banner of God, using God as a source and what have you. So unless we're able to or want to or have a will to first start with correcting that and bringing a check to all mechanisms that stemmed out from that, Hollywood, all of these things, and say we're not going to accept that you continue to flood the culture and make this popular. You made it popular just to go up and shoot somebody. You made it popular to go and rape a woman. You made it popular because you keep giving this notoriety. You don't make popular the good works of people. The good works have to be a special TV program. And maybe Disney may have to do it, and even they won't do it right, because they'll be not inclusive of others that should be included. So this is tied to a culture. And as the late Pope John Paul II said it best, that we're living in the time of a culture of death, a culture that is promoting death and no respect for the value of human life. That is the cause. And what do you attach to that title? Oh, you attach physical guns, wars, drugs, pornography. Just connect all those things under that title that we're living in a culture of death. And you can put all of those under there as an umbrella as to what's holding this up. So if we really want to deal with the root of it, It ain't just changing some gun law and saying this one can't have that, and you can have this one, but you must be 21, and all of these kind of things. They said you need to be 21 to drink. How many folks paid attention to that? You know, when they promoted in the cowboy days that that's what you expired for. To hurry up, become grown, because once you was able to drink, then that made you grown. The same as they connect smoking and all of these heinous habits that wreak havoc on the human body. Cancer, this, that, and the other, that once introduced, it seems it takes forever. If after 4 million people die or this, that, and the other, same even with this COVID situation, the many millions that died that should not have been subject to death had we responded in a timely fashion, governmental-wise, to it. So this is something that if you want to be able to deal with it, you have to do something. As much money and revenue you poured into culture to make this acceptable, to call a human being, a female, all of these nasty and no good and derogatory names, and then promote it so that with stars and others to flaunt it and to be naked and accept it and what have you, you have to, it's in our hands as decent human beings, those of us who seek decency and moral life, to have to stand up to all these babies that were just gunned down in a school, and innocent people shopping in a supermarket, and others tending houses of worships, whether it be the church or the synagogue, and etc. And a mindset says, I have to come in here and eliminate you, and then have all these long trials and everything, and then the political people talks in circles about it rather than directly to what's what, and then under the influence of the economics support from the Hollywood industry, from the manufacturers of weapon industry, and etc., having more power over the democracy or the voice of the common people, who are saying, we need to, as I'm saying, you want to know what the root is? Look at the culture that you have developed. You have put it in culture and you have made it popular, that young men and women aspire to be able to get a hold of a gun. And some areas, you allow them no problem access to the gun at 16, 17, and 15 years old under the guise, oh, they're hunters and what have you. But then there's other ones who you promote the gun as the only way to protect themselves, etc., in a hostile or criminal environment and what have you. They need it for survival and what have you. Then you also structure it to where only certain ones could have the guns and the other ones cannot. So this is the confusion of a messaging system of a messed up culture that lays the blame at the feet of those who are responsible in authority positions of falling to the influence of economics, capital, investments in money for offices and etc., and whoever gives them the most money is whom they lobby for and do the business with. So this is not some issue that, in my opinion, and based on those facts that I just gave, this is not an issue where it takes a rocket science to figure out. You have to reverse, first acknowledge that this is out of a culture that you have allowed a diabolical influence to take over and promote this kind of indecency and against the respect for human life, and then fed it the weaponry to attach to its weak mind that has been influenced to drive 200 miles from your town and scope out another town and be fed a pill of wickedness and bitterness that these people are the cause of your problem, and etc. We've been used like that since we were enslaved in America. That every problem that I would have to put it in the language of the time, Every problem that the white folks had, instead of them looking at themselves and saying, you the problem, they then had a scapegoat by saying the black man is the problem. It's because he is making progress. That's why we don't get what we get. And that strategy has been used throughout the time of America history, but it's also a strategy that's been used all over the world. How Africa is in the dilemma it's in right now because of the European, British, and others, the French, and all of them who went and split up the world under their dominance of the power of military might, guns and tanks and all of these things, which are still going on right now in the world. So this is not a hidden issue. It is clear. But who will have the strength, the fortitude to take it up? And the people stand up behind him or her who will stand and do that. And a process that we do have of electing people and giving them this authority, that we get behind those who are willing to stand up and say, I'm not going to accept revenue or money, though the Supreme Court has went and it's got paid off, to say that money represents an individual and a corporation, money represents them and they can give as much as they want for their causes. And this is why the world is in the trouble it's in. This is why the war that is going on in Ukraine with Russia. This is why the slaughtering of people in Israel and Palestine is going on, while the crime on crime in Africa goes on, in the Middle East, in Asia, and all over the world. Because this kind of mind has been dominating or domineering in its presentation and made gambling, all of these things, and made like these are the things that will bring fun and joy to your life. So right in front of you, you can see it is destroying the best of the human family. So that's how I see addressing these things. As I said, you can go back to when you declare that the human being of African descent who you enslaved was only worth 1/5 of a human being. You promoted that. You gave license to anyone to kill them and never be brought to trial for anything. So how many of our folks have been murdered, slaughtered, burnt, hung, and etc., and no one has ever been to trial? And when the few that you did bring to trial, they laughed at the trial when you stacked the deck with their cousins and nieces and everything else to be on the jury to find them innocent, absolutely. So if we're not going to deal with those realities, then as a country and as a world, we are doomed by our own choices, by our own hand of choosing to not stop this kind of marketing of no respect for the value of human life. So it's not just an issue of who got the gun, where they got the gun, who got the license, who don't have the license, etc. The gun, as I would say, the weaponry itself is a dead issue as long as it's just sitting there. It can do nothing. But it's the mind that picks it up and loads it and carries it to Buffalo, carries it to Texas, carries it to all of these different places that it has happened, into schools and etc., and promote it every day on television, every day with all of the new mechanisms that they have where you pay for the channels to see all this stuff. And everything is violence. All of it is just violence as a marketing, and the violence legitimized. Until you do it, then you cry foul. And that's how I would see it.
Yes. Thank you very much, Brother Ma'am. Could you just comment then on any attempts that are being made to at least correct or to at least shed light on the harms of some of these cultures that people embrace and people love to take on? Like, for example, the kids are the ones that are most times drawn to it. And even, I can give it a quick example. Like last week, there was some kids wanted to dance in front of the mosque, and someone was smoking. I was like, hey, this is a house of worship. If you want to do, you can go up the block, but just not here, you know, just not here.
Mm.
I thought I was respectful in my approach, but the attitude that they came back with, anything you try to correct or even address is like is rejected. It's just rejected. So, what do you think is a big pushback at any type of correction or even say awareness, a different awareness to be presented to them?
Well, you know, this morning, on my way to the mosque to make the Fajr prayer, I have a different vehicle, and I really don't know how to operate the radio to kind of put it on the stations that I would listen to. You know, water cooler, I think is one station, or water something, and then there's another one called Spa. You know, one of the things that I listen to that kind of get you to be able to think, you know, a little bit and kind of start your day off with some peace. So I don't have it set. So when I turned it on, it went to I think they gave me this thing they call Sirius or something like that, where they have 1,000 channels or something. It went to a channel 4. And the language that I heard on that channel and what it was saying shook me to my core. And I was already moving, so I couldn't even tap and push the daggone thing to stop it, or what's the name, turn it off. I'm trying to run the road, and I'm trying to tap this thing, and it just kept going with such filth that I'm like, how is this possible that this is even going to come across the airways in the name of freedom of speech? This ain't speech. This is profanity directed at women, and this and that of the worst type. How are you talking about somebody got a right to put this on a national venue? This is what I'm talking about culture. On a national venue, put a beat behind it, and you say it's okay, and then, like I said, by accident, I turn on the radio, and this thing comes on, and you feeding that to young folks? They can't hear no common sense from you, and you say, listen, we have our businesses here, and what have you, and smoking thing there, which, you know, we're sorry to see you do this, and what have you, but as a father, as a brother to you, as a whatever, you know, I hate to even tell you take it down the block, but you need to think about this, but you can't stand in front of my business and do this. You know, this is a house of worship, and whether it was a house of worship or anything else, you can't stand in front of my business and behave this way. I'm not going to accept that, you know, point blank. And you need to respect me, because I'm respecting you, telling you can't stand here and do this, and what have you. But this is so sick in the mind that you don't know one or two of them is carrying a gun illegally. And you say something to look for decency, and they pull out and shoot you. That's what happens every day. We're not getting the real report of how many people that just happened to just like that. We're not getting that because there's so many of it, they can't report all of it. So the only report is the one that's either tied to somebody who's popular, or tied to something that they want to push, and what have you. But every day in this city of New York and around this country, in every city, someone's just getting shot just for asking someone, could you respect that don't sit on my stoop, and what have you. Now, either the person is getting shot by the person sitting on their stoop, or the one whose stoop they're sitting on is shooting them. So we got to deal with, this is, as Pope John Paul II said, you're living in a time of a culture that is promoting death. And if you're promoting death to the people by music, by movies, by theater, by advertisement, by so-called news report, even weather reports, and what have you, all of it is tied to exciting in your spirit fear, inciting in your spirit anger, inciting in your spirit, and many times without you even being conscious that this is being fed to you. The power of it, until you go into road rage. Road rage, a common thing driving in these streets of these big cities. Because you can't drive in these streets and look for common sense to play. Common sense meaning you got the license to drive, you had to take a test and prepare yourself for it, and it gave you rules of the road. And everybody out there forgot the test, forgot about all that as soon as they got the license, and the rule of the road is however I want to do it. Zigzag in and out, no signal, ride on top of your bumper, beep at you, know. This is what the reality of it is. So you cover it saying, well, we gave a test, we told them to take the test, signal left, you go on left, signal right, look in both mirrors, give way to the person crossing the street, boom, boom, boom. And give way, you shouldn't have been out there. You know, I mean, this is the attitude, and then after it's all over with, and it's getting in handcuffs or something, then you're like, oh, the shock of it, why did I do that? This is what your question is a big question, because this is where it's at. We have been sold a dinner table of a culture of poison. A culture that is pure cyanide. And drinking cyanide and eating poison and stuff there is made popular. Gamble when you don't got no money, don't worry about it. We'll give you back $2 if you lose it. Just allow all this stuff to go. So this is happening globally. This is the world itself. And this is the work, I got to say point blank, this is the work of a very diabolical, manipulative mind that is laughing and say, look what I was able to do to the human being from the baby on up. You see a baby, a 2-year-old baby, just learn how to walk. Just getting up on his or her feet 1.5 years, 2 years, and proud that they did it. But then in the household, there's music going on and tell them, shake your booty. You know, do the sexual movement act. And you only 1 year old, 2.5 years old, and constantly feed that to them. This is the reality. I have not added anything of exaggeration to any of this based on your question. This is where it lies. And the majority of good people, I believe, but you're silent. You're not stepping up and addressing these issues, and right within the houses of worship is being acceptable. You go there to worship God in a miniskirt? What God you looking at? What are you looking for? You know, as we said in Islam, whatever you migrate for, that's what you're going to get. If you migrated for a wife, then that's what you're going to wind up with. You know, but if you migrated for service of God, that's different. So even in our house of worships, we see a picture of not the decency that we expect. It ain't about the posture. I'm just speaking to the big question that you asked me in terms of that. So this whole dynamics of culture that's now been made, quote unquote, legal for you to put out this filth and promote it. Legal, and they make it, I say, popular. So it's going to be what you're going to hear. You have to search hard and low to find something and what have you. You got to go through, you got 200 channels. You got to go to 207 before you can find one that's human, that has a human element and human element only. Be it the talk shows about foolishness, but made popular. Oh, we want to be, the talk show is, might as well come on and say, this is a channel for foolishness, so tune in and get your foolishness, your daily portion. I see it, say, what in the world? The world is, you know, this is that and that, and they still talking about, oh, that color of ice cream should have been blue or green and what have you, and, you know, this shoe here, oh, what? 19 children just got slaughtered. 10 people, old ladies, and people just got killed in Buffalo. This one over here, they got, what's his name? You know, and your talk show's going on with what have you. Okay, the Golden Casino, come do it now and get your peanuts, or forget about the life, go lay on the beach and take a bottle of beer. You know, the human being has been reduced to outside of the great human picture that he or she is supposed to be in. You would think we are in some kind of twilight zone or some kind of dimension that has taken over the human person. And from us still having our humanity, when we look into it and say, whoa, what's that going to be over there? So where even the animal kingdom runs away from you. They don't want to be bothered with you. So, are there answers? Certainly. But do you have the courage to go and apply those answers? That's the big question. And it's not about raising some age. It's not about making some political statement of how upset you are and things like that. And 2 weeks from now, something else will change the news cycle if you depend on that. And, you'll be back to the same thing. School will be back in again, and they'll make some memorials, and they'll say this and that. But you've been doing that all the time. When are you going to figure out that your answer is not the answer because it don't work? Is there a workable answer? Yes, there are. There's plenty of answers. But do you have the courageousness? It's unfortunately now it takes you to be courageous to speak to this and to make the steps necessary to make things happen. So that's the best I can give you, inshallah, God willing.
Could you just talk to, because I've heard of a few people who are generally trying to give human answers, but they're not getting the megaphones. They're not, if anything, they kind of, you might read about it in like one sentence just off, and then you never hear from them again.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one famous, she claimed that she belonged to the Christian faith, but she did make a very articulate point about the pro-choice. It was a female. She was talking about pro-choice, and she said, "Look, I'm pro-choice, and this is why I'm pro-choice." And she made a
pro-choice.
No, sorry. She was against abortion. She was against abortion.
Okay.
She was against abortion, and she made a very articulate point articulating her point and how
why she was against abortion.
Yes.
Okay.
And you never heard from her again. I guess you just one. Could you just people who do make the public have the courage to make the public statement and give very valid reasons why they're not highlighted or even portrayed? Like, okay, even if we don't agree with it, let it be publicly known. This is their stand, and this is what. If it's sound, if it's really sound, let it be known so people can at least identify with it and say, okay, I can at least see where they stand. But you'll never see that, you never see.
Well, you from what I'm hearing from you saying, you look for balance.
Yes.
In presentation. Well, you can't have balance in presentation if the mechanism in which you are being fed your information is owned by 5, 10, maybe 15 people who owns the Cyrus thing, who owns all the TV station, who owns the movie Hollywood productions, who owns the music industry, and the 5 or 6 or 10 of them are in cahoots, and they're controlling the mechanisms of communications. Then they're not going to give you fairness, they're going to give you the message that they want, that they think will continue to give them revenue and earnings in their pockets. So you coming with a common sense answer, as far as they're concerned, that's not going to a sober answer. Oh no, we want drunken answers because everybody's looking to hear drunken answers. They'll tune in. You give us a sober answer, we're going to lose half our audience and what have you. But that's the kind of culture that's been built up from psychological all the way through. That same kind of culture is unfortunately in the school systems, in the very curriculum and the manner in which they're taught. You're going to the school systems and you're being forced to swallow the pill of somebody's personal life behavior. I don't need your personal life behavior. I got my own personal life. It should be generated knowledge that will help produce a quality human being that can make sound choices based on some human norms rather than something you have chosen outside the norm to do, but you got the backup of media and everyone else to make you popular and make my position unpopular, therefore making me look like I'm something wrong with me because I don't accept your behavior, I don't accept in which way you approach life, and etc. You want to null and void my ability to say that, so you won't give it coverage because the other one is more popular that you have made, and it feeds you revenue. A lot of these things, most of them also, which I hadn't said yet, that's the culprit with this, is called greed. There is some economic scheme or some economic situation that by keeping these things in the atmosphere as the quote-unquote right things to do, and I have the machinery to promote it and keep it going, then why should I change it, particularly when I can say, well, I only, as Satan says, I only invited you to smoke. I didn't have no authority to make you smoke. You didn't have to do it. And that's where we at. I invited you to the weed. I made it legal, but I didn't say you had to smoke it. I invited you to gambling. I promoted it because I'm free to promote it. But I didn't say you had to go there and lose all your money and your family now is broke and you're woken up no more wife and children that got nothing else and what have you. You can't blame me because they point to your human side then that you didn't have to set my influence. So these behaviors and the way our school systems, the educational system works, is adding to a negative picture to where young folks coming out of the classroom and you don't have no sense of respect for adults or respect for the environment you're in and etc. What are you getting? What are you learning then in there? Disrespect. And saying that's okay. We want to market disrespect. We don't want them to listen to authority. So you send your child to the school system, and you're trying to manage the home life with respect for mommy, daddy, and respect for clothing and keeping them clean and hygiene and etc. And they come back out of the school, and you say, "What you doing? Why you do so and so?" And they front up on you. So what you lost your mind or something? Well, I'm gonna put I don't know the name of these things, but I'm gonna call the social service department on you. Say you abusing me, and they will respond quicker to that a parent's asking the child, "You will obey the decency in my house, or otherwise you're gonna pay some consequences here." And now they got, well, you can call social service on you and charge you with abusing your child because you're saying this is my house and these are the things that are gonna have to go on. So what is the school system telling them? That it's okay to do that? What do the movies tell them? What is the So it's a global issue that is taking the world down from the top to the bottom. And if they don't address this, unfortunately, as long as you promote that violent behavior and you promote these kind of things, then if you promote violence, what do you think will happen? Violence. You promote. There's no problem of just going bombing babies and killing them and everything else in the name of I want the land. And everybody stand by and just we're going to just sanction you, we're going to do this and that. But while you bombing babies or the Palestinian people, you go and you already narrowing them down to nothing to live on and everything, and now you're going to march in their face and create what's name on purpose, and then you got the support of the rich countries to keep feeding you money to do that? Africa the same way. You know, here's this big old continent and no unity. Huge continent, hugest one I guess on earth. No unity. And what are you hurting each other and killing each other over? You know, you say, well, wait a minute, I'll give you that. Stop killing her. Here, you take this. You know, this is what you want. Here, take it. So Europe, same thing, all over. So this is a time we're living in, as Imam W. Muhammad has said some time back. He said we're living in a time of the concluding of things. And if you don't think we live in a time of concluding of things, then I don't know where you're living at. Look at the behavior of the human being, and was it Frederick Douglass, or was it the great orator Frederick Douglass, or was it just an old lady who said to the behavior of the, and I have to use this color conscious thing now because it's history, said to the behavior to the white man that you look like God in the face. And we should saying that because of past imageries that was made that they would say was of Jesus the Christ, peace be upon the prophet and the messenger of God, that they would put up images and say this is him. And in that time when this lady was saying this, I remember, because I seen it in my grandmother's house, the picture they had of quote unquote Jesus was a yellow-haired man. It wasn't even blonde, it was yellow. White man with yellow hair. And said that he is God in the person. So this lady was saying, you look like God in the face, but you act like the devil in your heart. So she's saying there's a big contrast here. How can you give me a picture and say of you, the white man look like white man, and they're changing in years from the yellow hair to the blonde and to the brown, to the way he looked Jewish and stuff like it did in terms of that. They're changing around to the time, but still the same thing. How can you say that you put yourself in God's position, at the same time the heinous and inhuman things that you do to other human beings? Something is in total contradiction to this. And that's the time we're living in. That's the time we're living in. And until we change this as human beings and come back to that original nature and design that God gave us and highlight the garment of the first picture that God gave us and put back on that garment, and that is the garment of our first picture, is we are human. And all these other garments that we have put on top of that, black, white, red, yellow, brown, Chinese, African, Italian, Polish, Jewish, Irish, Indian, Native, this and that. Those are additional garments, as Imam Muhammad, that you put on the hanger. And they have been a burden on the hanger. Take them off and go back and see our human being is the title God gave us. It is the title in which we will all be able to make progress. Until you highlight that one, then your other garments or titles you put on will not be successful. You can have the successful garment of your African descendantness, or your Caribbean descendantness, or your Asian, or you can have that, but it must be in accord with that original garment called human. And that's what it says, and get to know each other so we can share in that cultural garment, but we share in it from our human excellence. So, alhamdulillah.
Just one more question, Brother Man, before
I don't think I'm answering anymore, but go ahead.
No, there's a popular term that they've been thrown around called like a replacement theory, or I guess there's a dominant culture, like for example, using color consciousness language again, where white culture sees any other culture, like for example African American culture, or even Islamic culture, or any other, they perceive any other culture that's not theirs as having the goal of replacing them. Could you just comment on that and see, because I don't, maybe because I identify as human and as a Muslim and I believe in Allah, their creator, I don't see any credit to it, you know. But there is because I've been constantly trying to watch certain news stations to see just how they interpret, like for example, probably say, let me see how facts, you know, even though I know, let me see how, and that's one common term that I've heard they've been bringing up, like a replacement. They're trying to come in and take what's rightful ours from us. They're trying to replace us. And I'm like, no, if anything, we don't want to be anything. So could you at least try to explain or make sense of what this replacement theory is? Or
Well, it's not new. It's not new. It's been used all over the world for people to dominate other people. And the strategy is to, in order to get someone to accept that, is one, play on their ignorance, and also you play on it by creating fear. So it's fear mongering to say that if you share with this one, you're going to lose your dominance over them. So this is what our book says, the Quran and the Bible talks on it too, where God says, and do never be in a position to seek dominance. God does not accept that anyone to seek dominance over the other one. So this fear-mongering and marketing is, again, I said, for their own, for the few who are doing it, and what have you, is something that's not new in the world. It's been done many times over. Go back in history and you will see that same setup. I mean, in recent history, they always talk about it, so I'll bring it up. The situation with Hitler. Same strategy, same thing. Blame the Jews merchants and what have you, for everything that they were not getting, that it was the Jewish merchant who dominated the situation, and therefore we poor and they rich and they have this and that, and we don't have any of it, and promoted that and led to the slaughtering and so forth and so on of Jews. But it has happened many times in history, and it seems like we just don't learn the lesson. You know, so this strategy that is being used now is no new strategy. And again, as I said, for the 400 years of our enslavement, all these strategies were used against us to justify and maintain slavery. When, say, some among the elite or those in authority would say this ain't right and we shouldn't do this, etc., then the bigger group would get the marching order of the common people to come up and vote them out, get them out of there. No, we can't have this. You know what I mean? No. So this strategy of the devil, the strategy of Satan himself, who is the enemy of all mankind, no matter what the texture of your skin or your language is. Satan announced in the heavens that he will be the enemy of all mankind. And his strategy is always to put one against the other and to try to put a false narrative on, hey, Philip, you know, Sister Marsha, she got all that stuff over there too, but you know, she didn't earn it, you know. She had special help from affirmative action, you know, so now why is she getting that? You ain't have that, and you know, all those kind of things. You won't say though, the only way she got a little affirmative action is because you was affirmatively on her neck and never let her get any that one thing, you know, in terms of that. And somebody finally is going to recognize that you done held them back for 400 years, and now they get a little threat, and you feel threatened by it. And then why do you want to always dominate over people? Why do you want to be the master race, is what I think Hitler called it, the master race. Those things are still happening under different titles, under different names, and what have you. You mentioned the Fox News, so under the Fox, I guess that's part of the promotion. Politically, that's part of the promotion, to sell a fear that if you don't vote for me, these Negroes are going to be in your house. They're going to marry your daughter. Remember that one there? They're going to marry your wife. They're going to rape them. And people who are ignorant and what have you, and filled with emotions and fears, they go for it and they vote fear. Even though it makes no sense. It makes no sense. The same when you're talking about fearing, you need to ask the one who's promoting it and telling you that, the influential ones or the political ones in this one, ask them who's cooking their food in their kitchen. Who's taking care of their babies, changing the diapers. You know, it's illogical. You know, you promote and feel this person of African descent or Latino descent, whatever it is, and at the same time, you can't stop eating their food. They're cooking for you. Now, if they really had that kind of situation, it'd be easy. Just drop a little cyanide in there and you'll be out of here. You know, but they're obviously special people that you were doing this to them, but yet they would not poison your food. They had another commitment of consciousness and faith in a creator and authority that they wouldn't do it. You know how many of those senators and Congress people back in that day down south were doing stuff there that we could have poisoned their food in 2 seconds? All of the White House staff, the movies on one White House staff, name was of African descent. Many of the main guards, the main top of line security they want, are African folks of African descent and etc. because of the dedication. Yet they publicly give you an imagery of something different. So this is so childish and so childish. I don't want to say childish because children is the parents, is the grown up who's acting like a child. That I can sell you a bill of good over the news to be fearful of this one and that one, and say all your problem is because they have a little freedom and they are coming up, and then therefore we got to stop them. So come up with all kind of mechanisms in that community to stop them from having children. Do everything you can. I know they now with this thing with abortion, but in the people of color communities, there always did things to try to stop us from having babies, except for when they needed more slaves. But other than that, I remember in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, where they came out with these pills and what have you, and they flooded the poor communities with these pills. Like they got these stores now called dollar stores or things like it there, different ones that's supposed to be cheap or something you go to. They used to have them like that, they call them John Bargain stores. And the minute you walk into the store, they had a whole big table with all these different pills for the women to take to not have babies. Then they went into an operation called Cesarean section to make sure that would reduce the Western. It was targeted to the poor women, African women and other poor women. It's documented, and that's why they don't want you to talk about history. They did this. They had psychiatrists to declare out our students and other ones that there's something wrong with them because they got an energy that you didn't have. So we're talking about a devil here. We're talking about a wicked mind, a devil who has not hid his agenda to turn humanity against humanity. And he used a simple color conscious trick to do it. And now that same thing is being pumped back again. Worry about who you bringing in. So now what they're trying to do, bring in as many Europeans as they can under the guise of there's a war, so let them in. They don't have to pass through the setup that our Haitian brothers and sisters swim across the ocean and everything else, and they won't let them in no matter what happens. So is it equal treatment under the law? No. Mexican brothers and sisters, what have you. And the problem is that the fact you are causing the disturbance in their country as to why they cannot stay in their country in order to be able to make a decent living for their family in the future. So there's a lot here, and I think that was your last question on that thing, and I think we're going to break and go to another segment, God willing. Again, we're grateful to God always for our life and for the soundness of our mind, and that he has brought us to the table to drink of the water and eat of the food of his revelation, the Quran, the revelation given to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, the prayers and peace be upon him, and that it has saved our lives from being dominated by the influence of ignorance. Al-Islam requires a conscious person in order to knock on the door, and it requires you to remain conscious at all times and to fear none but the taqwa, which means the loving, embracing fear that whatever I do, that I don't do anything that will displease my Lord, the ultimate authority over all creation, the universe and all. So we thank you, and we'll move to the next segment of our program, and we say, peace be unto you, and pray that our efforts to addressed the issues put before me, that we said nothing to offend you. It was not our intent. It was to give good and nothing but good. Thank you very much. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.